Climate change is one of the biggest issues that the entire world is facing right now. It's already having huge impacts on natural ecosystems and people all over the world. More than 70% of all species occur in the tropics, and this is where climate change is going to have its biggest impacts. I cannot emphasize more the importance of dealing with climate change. The reason I started working on climate change is 10 years ago I did some analysis which suggested that we could lose 50% of those species. And that just, blew my socks off and changed my research to being about climate change. Now, 10 years on, we have actually got the evidence to show that 50% of the species are already declining. They're already moving up the hills into cooler areas. So basically things are happening even faster than we predicted. If you look at what would be required to stop that, to save those species, it's actually doable. It's not going to send the world into economic depression. It's not going to need new technologies. It's all entirely doable. It just needs a reasonable global approach. And with that global approach, the analyses we've done in this region show that we would go, just with a reasonable approach, we would go from having an 88% of the species being extinct or endangered down to about 5%. So, people get very depressed about climate change. We can't do anything. But the fact is, we could. Almost everything that we do in terms of our own survival, in terms of things like fresh air, fresh water, medicines, all of these things that we take for granted are actually provided by naturally functioning ecosystems. Every time you take a drink of water, it has come from a place that has provided clean water effectively. Climate change is one of the biggest issues that all governments, managers, policymakers are trying to grapple with. How do we deal with this now? How do we do something that minimises the impacts that climate change has on our natural ecosystems? Globally, there are three really big and important centres of diversity in the world: South America, the Asia-Pacific region, and Central Africa. These are the places that we want to concentrate on. One of the things that we can do to minimise the impacts of climate change is to simply give people the capacity to make better, more informed decisions about ecosystem management. So how can a climate change research network help with this huge issue? A global network of people can really help by doing a number of things. It will provide a collaborative network of monitoring sites to collect baseline data across the world. It'll take this data and synthesise that data and produce information that is useful to policymakers and managers everywhere. It will also facilitate research, and all of those things will help increase the capacity of the policymakers, the researchers, the politicians, the managers of our natural environment. It will help build their capacity to deal with this problem. Why should you join a climate change research network? It's free. It gives you access to all of the resources and information that we're going to distribute through the network. It gives you access to a huge number of people that are working in your field right across the world. By being part of this network, it means that you will be part of the solution that will help us to reduce the impacts of climate change and minimise the impacts on our natural environment and our amazing biodiversity.